with that. He's looking for that single shot.
Picture this. A boxer so dominant, so terrifyingly skilled that opponents fight not to win, but just to survive the first round without getting knocked out cold. A boxer with a knockout percentage north of 80%. A boxer who has never lost. Not once, not ever. Now here's the question that should stop you scrolling. If this man is that good, why don't most casual sports fans in the West even know his name? His name is Naoya Inoue. They call him the Monster. And in Japan, he is a national treasure. But for years, in the biggest boxing market in the world, he's fought some of the most breathtaking fights of this entire era, in front of audiences who barely noticed. This is the story of a fighter who conquered every single opponent boxing put in front of him, but who has spent his entire career chasing something far harder to knock out. Respect. Real, global, undeniable respect. Let's get into it. The boy from Zama, Naoya Inoue, was born on April 10th, 1993, in a small city called Zama, in Japan's Kanagawa Prefecture, not Tokyo. Not one of the glittering, famous cities you picture when you think of Japan. A quiet town, south of the capital, the kind of place where nobody expects a legend to be born. His father, Shingo Inoue, had boxed himself as an amateur years earlier. Nothing spectacular, nothing that made headlines. Just a man who loved the sport and eventually stepped away from it to run a painting company and support his family. But that love for boxing never left him. And when Naoya was just 5 years old, his father put a pair of gloves on his tiny hands and started teaching him. Here's something that separates this story from a lot of other boxing origin stories. Shingo Inoue never handed his son off to another coach as he got better. He never stepped aside to let a bigger name take over once the talent became obvious. To this day, decades later, Shingo is still in his son's corner, still calling instructions between rounds, still the one voice Naoya listens to above everyone else in the sport. Naoya wasn't the only Inoue with boxing in his blood either. His older brother Takuma also became a professional boxer, and later his cousin Koki followed the same path. Boxing wasn't just a sport in that family, it was the family business. As an amateur, young Naoya put together a record that turned heads across Japan. 75 wins against only 6 losses, with 48 of those wins coming by stoppage. In a level of boxing where knockouts are rare because fighters wear protective headgear and shorter rounds limit damage, that kind of stoppage rate was almost unheard of. He medaled at international tournaments while still a teenager, and by the time he signed with the Ohashi boxing gym in Yokohama, run by a former world champion himself, everyone around him already sensed something special was building. But here's the twist that shaped his entire career going forward. When Inoue signed with that gym, he made a promise, in writing, that most young prospects would never dare to make. He committed that he would never deliberately take an easy fight just to pad his record. No tune-up opponents, no safe wins to boost the numbers. Every fight, from his very first one, would be against someone who could genuinely test him. Most fighters build their careers slowly and carefully, protecting their unbeaten record with strategic matchmaking. Inoue chose the opposite path from day one, and that decision is exactly why the word monster would eventually attach itself to his name. Let's slow down on that childhood for a second, because it explains so much about who Inoue became. In one interview, reflecting on how he ended up in the sport at all, Inoue said something simple but telling. He said his father had been a boxer, so naturally he followed him into it. There's no dramatic origin story here, no tale of escaping poverty or violence the way you hear with so many fighters from other parts of the world. Just a quiet, steady household where discipline and structure were simply part of everyday life from the time he could walk. But don't mistake that quiet upbringing for an easy one. Boxing at the elite level demands a level of sacrifice that doesn't care where you were born or how stable your home life was. Training under his father from age 5 meant Naoya Inoue's entire childhood revolved around a level of repetition and discipline that most kids his age never experience. Hours in the gym, technical drilling, the kind of structured intensity that either breaks a child's love for a sport completely or forges something unbreakable. For Inoue, it clearly forged the second outcome. He's described his relationship with boxing in the simplest possible terms. He said he loves fighting, that it's something he's always wanted to do, and that he intends to fight until he's the very best there's ever been. That kind of single-minded clarity at such a young age is rare even among elite athletes. A career built on hard fights. Naoya Inoue turned professional on October 2nd, 2012 at the legendary Korakuen Hall in Tokyo, facing a Filipino national champion named Crisono Mayao. He was just 19 years old. What happened that night set the tone for everything that would follow. Inoue dropped his opponent in the very first round, dropped him again in the fourth, and finished the fight with a combination so precise it looked like something from a much more experienced fighter, not a teenager in his professional debut. And true to that promise he'd made, Inoue didn't ease into easier competition after that. His following fights came against national champions and high-ranked contenders, fighters most prospects at his stage of development would have carefully avoided. By his sixth professional fight, barely 2 years into his career, Naoya Inoue was already a world champion. He stopped the reigning WBC light flyweight champion in 6 rounds, a fighter who had successfully defended his own title 8 times before that night. Here's where the story gets almost hard to believe. Instead of settling in at that weight and defending his new title for years, Inoue made one defense and then jumped up 2 entire weight classes at once. Most fighters spend their careers carefully climbing one division at a time. Inoue skipped an entire weight class just to find tougher competition faster. At his new weight, he faced a battle-tested veteran who had never once been stopped in his career. Inoue ended that fight in 2 rounds, and he kept climbing. Weight class after weight class. Each time seeking out the most dangerous, most accomplished opponent available, rather than the safest path to another title defense. By the time he reached bantamweight, Inoue's reputation had grown into something close to mythical inside the sport. Fighters and trainers who studied him described watching someone who combined blinding hand speed with fight-ending power in both hands, a combination that almost never exists in the same human being. Think about how unusual that career arc actually is. In most combat sports, moving up in weight is treated as a last resort, something a fighter does only when they've run out of realistic challenges at their current size, or when their body has simply outgrown a division. For Inoue, moving up weight classes became almost a habit, a deliberate strategy to keep testing himself against opponents who, on paper, should have had a physical advantage over him. Bigger reach, bigger frames, more natural power. And time again, Inoue's technical precision and speed made those size advantages disappear the moment the bell rang. By 2018, still only in his mid-20s, Inoue had already become a world champion in 3 separate weight divisions. Boxing historians started drawing comparisons to some of the greatest multi-weight champions the sport had ever produced, a conversation usually reserved for legends with decades of history behind their names, not a fighter still building his. But even with all of that dominance building, one signature rivalry was still waiting to define him completely. The fight that broke his face and made his legend. In 2018, Naoya Inoue entered the World Boxing Super Series, a tournament designed to crown the single best fighter in his weight class through a gauntlet of elite competition, not a series of hand-picked opponents. He obliterated the quarterfinal in just 70 seconds, a knockout so violent and so fast it was later named Knockout of the Year by Ring magazine. He stopped his semi-final opponent in 2 rounds. That set up the final. And the final would become one of the most important nights of his entire career. His opponent was Nonito Donaire, a legend in his own right, a fighter with championships across multiple weight classes and a resume most boxers could only dream of. This wasn't a stepping stone. This was a genuine, dangerous, future Hall of Famer standing across the ring from him. And by that point in his own career, Donaire had already fought and beaten a long list of world-class opposition. He wasn't there to lose quietly. In the second round, Donaire landed a shot that fractured the bone around Inoue's eye socket. Now here's the moment that separates a good fighter from a legendary one. A fractured orbital bone is a serious, painful injury. Plenty of fighters, hurt that badly that early in a fight, would find a way to survive on instinct alone, protecting themselves for the rest of the night just to make it to the final bell. Inoue kept fighting, kept attacking, kept pushing forward with a broken bone in his face, all the way to the final round, in a fight so brutal and so competitive that it was later named Ring magazine's Fight of the Year. He won by decision, battered, swollen, his face rearranged by one of the best fighters of that era. and he still walked away with his hand raised. Imagine the mental toughness required for that. Every boxer trains for power, for technique, for conditioning. Far fewer are truly tested on whether they can keep making split-second tactical decisions while genuinely injured, with real pain radiating through their skull every time a punch lands anywhere near that fracture. Inoue didn't just survive that test. He won the exchange that followed, landing enough of his own offense over the remaining rounds to take the decision on the judges' scorecards. But here's a detail from that same fight week that almost nobody outside Japan knows about. While Inoue was in the ring fighting the biggest fight of his career, his own home back in Japan was broken into. Burglarized, while the champion himself was thousands of miles away, fighting for his legacy, completely unaware that his own house was being violated at that exact moment. Think about that. The same week he was proving his toughness to the entire boxing world, absorbing a broken bone in his face and refusing to stop. Somebody back home was proving that even a national hero isn't immune to having his own life invaded while his back is turned. Inoue and Donaire would meet again in 2022 in a rematch loaded with history and unfinished business. This time, there was no going the distance. Inoue stopped Donaire in the second round, closing the book on their rivalry with a statement that left absolutely no doubt about who the better fighter was. Later that same year, Inoue defeated Paul Butler to become the first undisputed bantamweight champion in 50 years, the first fighter to hold every major belt in that division since 1972, and the very first one to ever do it in boxing's modern four-belt era. The move that should have slowed him down by 2023, Naoya Inoue had conquered an entire weight class completely. There was nothing left to prove at bantamweight, no rival left to silence. So he moved up again. Super bantamweight, a new division, new challenges, new questions about whether his power would translate against bigger, naturally larger men. Those questions didn't last long. Inoue defeated Stephen Fulton by knockout to capture 2 more world titles in his new weight class. Then he beat Marlon Tapales by knockout to become undisputed champion in a second division entirely, one of only a handful of boxers in the entire four-belt era to ever pull off that feat, standing alongside legends like Terence Crawford and Alexander Usyk in that exclusive company. He kept defending Luis Neri, TJ Doheny, Murodjon Akhmadaliev, David Picasso. Fight after fight, the pattern never changed. Dominant performances against genuinely dangerous, credentialed opposition in a career built entirely on the promise he made as a teenager to never take the easy road. Each of those names deserves a moment of context, because none of them were pushovers. Neri was a former champion himself, known for his own punching power. Doheny had already beaten world-class competition on his way up. Akhmadaliev came into their fight undefeated, a 2-time Olympian with elite amateur pedigree. These weren't names picked to protect a record. These were exactly the kind of fights Inoue had promised years earlier he would never avoid. By 2026, Naoya Inoue stood undefeated across an entire professional career. Dozens of fights, 0 losses, a knockout percentage that ranks among the most terrifying in the sport's modern history. In May of that year, he headlined a sold-out Tokyo Dome against fellow undefeated Japanese star Junto Nakatani in a fight that had been anticipated for years, both men undefeated, both men holding titles, both men representing the absolute peak of Japanese boxing. That night at the Tokyo Dome carried a weight beyond just another title defense. 2 undefeated champions, both homegrown Japanese talents, both already legends in their own country, sharing a ring in front of one of the largest crowds ever assembled for a boxing event in that nation's history. For a country with as rich a boxing tradition as Japan, that night represented something close to a passing of the torch moment, except nobody was ready to hand anything over just yet. Inoue won by unanimous decision, extending a resume that, on paper, reads like one of the greatest in the history of the sport. So where's the respect? Here's the part of this story that should genuinely frustrate you once you understand it. Wann ist die Hammer und Naoya Inoue has done everything the sport of boxing could ever ask of a fighter. He has never ducked a dangerous opponent. He has never padded his record. He has fought through broken bones and come out the other side with his hand raised. He has become undisputed champion in 2 separate weight classes during an era when that accomplishment is almost impossibly rare. And yet, for years, huge portions of the Western sports world barely knew his name. Think about why that happens. A huge share of Inoue's biggest fights have taken place in Japan, often in the middle of the night for American time zones, broadcast in ways that made them genuinely difficult for casual Western fans to even watch live. He fights in the lighter weight classes, bantamweight, super bantamweight, divisions that have historically gotten a fraction of the media attention that heavyweight boxing commands, even when the fighters in those lighter divisions are producing far more technically brilliant, action-packed fights. There's also the simple reality of markets and language. Inoue conducts most of his interviews in Japanese. His biggest press conferences and press tours happen on the other side of the world from where boxing's biggest financial engine, the American pay-per-view audience, actually lives. A fighter can be must-see, transcendent, historically great, and still remain a mystery to an entire continent of fans simply because of geography and broadcast timing. Compare that to fighters in bigger weight classes, fighting on massive American or Saudi Arabian cards, with English-language press conferences and viral trash talk clips flooding social media feeds. Some of those fighters have accomplished far less than Inoue in terms of pure boxing dominance, and yet walk around with far bigger global profiles. There's an uncomfortable truth buried in that comparison, one that stretches beyond just Inoue's career. Boxing has always been a sport where visibility and skill don't perfectly line up. Charisma sells tickets, trash talk generates headlines. A single viral moment outside the ring can generate more attention than an entire year of technically flawless performances inside it. Inoue never played that game. He's a naturally quiet, humble presence in interviews, letting long silences sit rather than filling them with manufactured hype. In a media environment that rewards volume, that kind of restraint can genuinely work against a fighter's global profile, no matter how spectacular the performances themselves actually are. That's the hidden struggle behind the monster. Not a struggle against any opponent in the ring. He's already beaten every single one of them. The real struggle has been against distance, against language, against a sport's broadcast economics that have nothing to do with a fighter's actual skill. But here's the twist that's slowly starting to shift. Boxing insiders, the people who actually study the sport at the deepest level, not just casual fans chasing highlight clips, have started ranking Inoue among the very best pound-for-pound fighters on the planet. And in 2023, he became the first Japanese fighter in history to sit at the very top of that list. Respected boxing writers, historians, and even rival champions have gone on record saying that if Inoue fought in a bigger weight class, in a bigger media market, he would already be a global superstar on the level of any heavyweight in the sport. Streaming platforms and bigger international promoters have also slowly started building cards specifically designed to bring Inoue's fights to wider Western audiences, scheduling broadcasts at more accessible hours and pairing his bouts with bigger promotional pushes than he ever received earlier in his career. The recognition is catching up, slowly, but it's catching up. The quiet strength behind the monster. Away from the ring, Naoya Inoue's life looks almost nothing like the chaos that surrounds so many boxing superstars. He met his wife in high school, long before any of the titles or the fame. They married in 2015, and together they've raised 3 children. His wife has largely stayed out of the public eye by choice, even as her husband's career exploded onto the international stage. Inoue still lives in Yokohama, within walking distance of the same gym he's trained out of for his entire professional career. No relocating to a bigger city once the money started coming in. No entourage culture, just a fighter, his father in his corner, and the same gym walls that watched him grow from a teenage prospect into the most feared fighter in his weight class. Compare that lifestyle to the version of superstardom most fight fans are used to seeing. Sprawling mansions, rotating entourages, public feuds that spill out onto social media for the world to consume. Inoue has built one of the most dominant resumes in modern boxing while living what amounts to an almost ordinary family life. The same neighborhood, the same gym, the same small circle of people who were there before any of the titles arrived. That kind of quiet, grounded consistency doesn't generate viral headlines the way a controversial press conference or a wild social media rant does. There's no scandal to cover, no chaos to sensationalize, just discipline, humility, and results, fight after fight after fight. And maybe that's part of the answer to the very question this video started with. In a sports media landscape that often rewards noise over substance, drama over discipline, a fighter like Naoya Inoue, soft-spoken, family-focused, letting his fists do every bit of the talking, was always going to have to fight twice as hard for the recognition his talent actually deserves. He's never publicly complained about it either. He's never demanded more attention or accused the sport of overlooking him. He's simply kept fighting the best available opponent over and over again, trusting that the results would eventually speak loud enough on their own. What monster really means. When people hear the nickname monster, they usually picture something frightening, devastating, something built purely to destroy. But after everything you've just learned about Naoya Inoue, maybe that nickname means something different than it first appears. Maybe it's not about fear at all. Maybe it's about a kind of relentlessness that refuses to take the easy path, even when nobody's watching closely enough to notice the difference. A 5-year-old boy in a small Japanese city, taught by a father who never boxed at the highest level himself, but who believed enough in his son to spend decades in his corner. A teenager who promised, in writing, to never take a shortcut. A champion who fought through a broken bone rather than protect himself for one night. A global talent who never got the spotlight his skill deserved and who kept performing at an elite level anyway, fight after fight, without complaint. That's the real story hiding underneath the nickname. Not a monster built to scare people. A quiet, disciplined force who has spent his entire career proving himself over and over again in a sport and a world that made him fight twice as hard just to be seen. So the next time the name Naoya Inoue comes across your screen, I hope you see more than just another undefeated record, more than just another highlight reel knockout. I hope you see a 5-year-old boy from a small town in Japan who never once took the easy road, even when nobody outside his own country was watching. Because true greatness doesn't always come with a spotlight attached. Sometimes it just keeps winning, quietly, until the whole world finally has no choice but to look. If this story opened your eyes to a fighter you didn't know enough about, do me a favor. Hit that like button and subscribe if you're new here. There are so many more untold stories like this one, and I'd love for you to be here when we tell the next one. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next story.